Well, welcome everyone. Josh of Severe Weather. Happy Sunday to you. We've got ourselves a rare big time storm coming for Gulf Coast areas that have not seen snow in several years. And this one's got the possibility of being maybe one of the top two or three storms in recorded history in places like Louisiana and southeastern Texas. And that's not really even the only part of this story. We've got major cold coming across the entire country, one of our coldest stretches of weather in maybe 11 winters is coming, and that's going to affect all of you, whether or not you're on the Gulf Coast. So, this video is going to break down how cold it's going to get, who's going to see snow, how much, what has changed since maybe a couple of days ago, and then other things that we need to be watching, like a storm in the Northeast today and tonight, and dangerous fire conditions again, unfortunately, in Southern California coming up over the next couple of days. So, I appreciate you joining me. I know we tried to do this yesterday. I had some tech issues. I really apologize for that. That was very unfortunate and frustrating to me, and I'm sure to you, but all we can do is press on at this point. So appreciate you all joining me. I'm going to share my screen with you here, and we're going to take a look at temperatures first, and then we are going to talk about the forecast here. So here's what we're looking at right now, and you can see the cold temperatures are invading from north to south. We have temperatures around lunchtime that are almost 20 degrees Fahrenheit below zero in the Arrowhead of Minnesota, and sub-zero temperatures reach all the way down here into Iowa and Nebraska and the Colorado Rockies. And the cold continues to march. You can't avoid it anywhere in the country, even though right now Florida is enjoying temperatures in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You can see the cold is on the doorstep and on its way in. So we're going to see a big temperature drop coming here in the next couple of hours to days. And all the country, with the exception of maybe the desert Southwest, will be below average here before long. And honestly, it's not just the temperatures we need to be concerned with, but it's how it feels when the wind kicks in. And this is what we're looking at here at lunchtime right now. Temperatures are, wow. I mean, 40 degrees to 44 degrees below zero on the U.S. side here. Just really crazy conditions across the upper Midwest. And this is not totally unheard of for this part of the country, but you got to look back at how warm the last few winters have been. This is definitely going to shock the body. So we see wind chills that are 40 to 50 below zero and heat indices in the upper 80s in South Florida, or at least mid 80s in South Florida. So that temperature change is about 150 degrees for what it feels like from the Canadian border down to South Florida. Pretty remarkable to see that. Here's a look at our current hazards. And this is from the National Weather Service, and you can see a lot of the Northeast is under a winter storm warning that stretches from the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee right up through West Virginia, eastern Pennsylvania, including the Philadelphia area, all the way up into eastern Maine, and I'm sure continuing into New Brunswick and Nova Scotia as well, though the Weather Service only covers the U.S. side. And we do have advisories west of that all the way to the central parts of Kentucky and middle Tennessee. We do have a winter storm watch now in effect from the central part of Texas, basically Austin and San Antonio, right along the Gulf Coast through greater New Orleans, all the way up to near Atlanta. And we do have freeze watches as well, south and north of that area as well. So the cold is here and the winter weather is going to follow. And you can see in the bright pink in Southern Cal, we also have, again, a red flag warning. Critical fire conditions are coming. Now, if you look at the display from the Weather Services page, it actually includes these extreme cold advisories and warnings. And the dark blue indicates where it's just extremely dangerous to be outside to begin with. Frostbite is imminent. The light blue indicates brutal cold. For whatever reason, though, we've got part of the country that will be cold, but does not have that area yet marked under a watch or warning. And those of you who are Philly Eagle fans, this is a little blast from the past, but for real, brutally cold, but I guess we can handle it in Kansas City. So there's my poor attempt at humor. I hope somebody got that, but if not, that's okay. So here's a look at the water vapor image. This shows you where moisture is in the middle and upper parts of the atmosphere, where our storm systems are tracking. And you can see here, storm gathering over the southeastern states, moving up the eastern seaboard. Next piece of energy drops down into the Rockies. That is going to link up with our subtropical jet, and moisture is going to ride along the Gulf Coast and head east northeastward here Monday night, Tuesday, into early on Wednesday. And what that means is everybody that's going to see the brighter white is going to have a cloud cover that's just going to look miserable. And we've got a lot of moisture coming as well into Florida, into the Gulf Coast states over the coming days. Now, I do want to show you, and let me back this up real quick here. I do want to show you where the cold is attacking right now and where it's going to go. Because as this cold goes over the warmer lakes, we're going to see significant amounts of lake effect snow again in upper Michigan, lower Michigan, into northwestern PA, into western New York, and of course, parts of Ontario that face the lakes here as well over the next couple of days. And amounts could get up to as much as 1 to 2 feet in some locations here, depending on where these bands become most persistent. And that's just through early Monday morning. If we take it another day, you could see amounts are going to come up to maybe 5 feet in some locations here on the UP of Michigan. The Keweenaw, maybe a couple of feet. And western lower Michigan, besides the cold, we've got the snow coming. So pretty significant storm coming. We're going to talk about the other systems here in just a moment. Here's a look at the Northeast, and you can see our storm system is beginning to blossom, and we'll be tracking from the Mid-Atlantic region this afternoon into the Northeast tonight, into northern New England overnight, and into Atlantic Canada before daybreak tomorrow. And it's a quick hitter, but you can see while there is in the green here some rain expected at the coast, it is going to change over to snow. So those right on the coast, as you might expect, are not going to see quite as much as those just inland due to the fact that it starts as rain. But once it changes over, there's going to be significant precipitation rates coming, and that could include eastern Maryland around 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon, eastern PA, the Lehigh Valley into the Poconos, North Jersey, eventually New York City area here around dark tonight, Boston area later this evening, right around 8 to 9 to maybe 11 o'clock, and then eastern Maine, especially down east Maine into the Bay of Fundy. Very heavy snow rates are expected here, and behind that, it's going to be windy and much colder as we start the next week here with lake effect bands expected. So this is not a wildly big storm, but it is quick hitting, and roads are going to be heading to temperatures well below freezing. They're going to ice up quickly tonight. Travel is going to be disrupted for sure. And even though tomorrow is a federal holiday, those who maybe do have to get to work are going to encounter some resistance with that due to the fact that the ground is going to be so cold. There'll be fresh snow. It's going to take a while to get that stuff cleared. So be preparing for impacts tomorrow morning, along with the cold and the wind. Roads are going to be dangerous to travel here in the morning as well. And I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, so we have one snowplow, I think, for our whole county. I know these folks have a snowplow per neighborhood, but still takes time. So pack your patience if you do have travel plans. Now, on the front end of the storm, you can see the snow is piling up here this afternoon. And locally in the highlands, a couple of inches of snow. More as we get into West Virginia, the ski area is picking up over 6 inches of accumulation, and even more as we get into tomorrow morning. So the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee are looking at locally 6 inches plus for those higher peaks. West Virginia, those totals go up. Even Charleston, a couple of inches. Morgantown, a few inches. The eastern portion of West Virginia, the eastern panhandle, Shenandoah Valley, right up into central Maryland, we're looking at on average about 3 or 4 inches of accumulating snow, according to the NAM model. And those totals come up a little bit more as this system moves farther north and east and it deepens. It's going to produce some heavier rates of snow. So there will be a sharp cutoff. The Jersey Shore may not get a whole lot from AC on southward, but when you get north of there towards New York City, Allentown, Phillipsburg, New Jersey, we're looking at, in general, 3 to 6 inches of snow and maybe locally some higher totals than that. And into southern New England and upstate New York, we're looking at several inches as well. But eastern Long Island, the islands, Cape Cod, obviously, we've got some warmer air in place. And so that heaviest snow does stay off to your north and west. Not a big storm for you. Here's a closer view of what's coming in here. You'll see the snow moves into the D.C. area at about 1 to 2 o'clock this afternoon, about the time you're watching this video, and into the Philly area in time for the big game here this afternoon, and picks up, and it will be at its heaviest in the late afternoon and early evening hours. So DC, we're looking at, in general, a couple of inches of snow. That could go on either side of that. It would be a boom if we got more than 5 inches. It would be a bust if we got less than an inch. So a couple of inches right now expected. When you get northwest up towards the Mason-Dixon line, there could be locally 5 or even 6 inches of snow, places like Mount St. Mary's, Hagerstown, those areas, and right across the border towards York and Lancaster and Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and even the western side of Philly, a few inches of snow is expected if you believe the NAM model here. So a little bit more tomorrow back in the mountains, but we are going to see things clearing out pretty quickly in the afternoon. Looking at the rest of the Northeast and New England here, Boston, we're looking at about 4 inches, give or take. More to the west towards Worcester, maybe 5, 6, 7 inches. New Hampshire, 7 to 10, parts of Vermont as well. And again, elevation will help you get more snow, but less when you get towards the coastline of New Hampshire and Rhode Island, maybe just a couple of inches here. And then our highest amounts from the storm will be across eastern Maine and into Atlantic Canada, where amounts, generally speaking, will be 6 to 10 inches, maybe even plus in parts of New Brunswick. Maybe we're looking at as much as 25 to 30 centimeters of fresh accumulation. So that is the Northeast storm. Let's talk about what's coming to the south. light snow band breaking out here with a second Arctic boundary. We could actually see a little bit more here. And the timeline on this is going to be tomorrow evening before midnight around the Red River area. We could see a light accumulation of snow, but our main Gulf portion of the storm starts getting going here later tomorrow night after midnight. And Tuesday morning, we do expect the Interstate 10 corridor to get really nasty really quickly from near San Antonio through the Houston area towards Lake Charles. And as this system makes its way through the Gulf of Mexico, you'll see there's going to be a limit to how far north the moisture is going to be able to get. So areas like Dallas and Tyler and Longview, which we're looking at that potential to see accumulation a couple of days ago, right now it looks like it's going to stay a little bit too far to your south. It may not even get much farther north than, say, Austin, Round Rock, and College Station. But where it is snowing and sleeting, we will see some very significant impacts here across the Texas coast, and certainly for Louisiana tomorrow, not tomorrow, but Tuesday. And you can see here some of these brighter purple colors that are moving through the I-10, I-12 corridor indicate snow rates that are going to be very heavy and rates we just don't typically see in this part of the country. I grew up in Baton Rouge. I've seen snow a few times down there, but this would be potentially the second or third snowiest storm on records going back to the 1890s, which is just remarkable. New Orleans is involved in the snow, Lafayette, New Iberia, Morgan City. There will be some sleet possibly mixing in or even freezing rain once you get down into the bayou parishes and all the way down to places like Grand Isle. But far enough inland, we're talking primarily snow here. If you look at the NAM snowfall amounts, aside from what's coming down here tonight and tomorrow, we see it beginning in the hill country north and west of San Antonio, places like Fredericksburg and Bernie. Get into that here late tomorrow night. And then things are going to pick up in the morning quickly on Tuesday. And rates right now look like they're going to be heaviest east of the Sabine River in Louisiana. But some of our models still hint that there could be a band of heavy snow somewhere in southeastern Texas, maybe even in the Victoria area, but certainly closer to Houston, Beaumont, Port Arthur. So right now, this is just one model. This is what it shows. And you can see there's a pretty big gradient here, about an inch in central Texas and as much as 5 to 6 near the Louisiana border, and more when we get to Louisiana. But these could come up or down a little bit. So either way, an inch of snow causes problems down here. 6 inches will be a very significant problem across this area. As we shift gears to the southeast, I do want to talk about what's going on in Florida today. Some heavier storms moving through, and those will be out of the picture here by morning on Monday from South Florida. And then the cold air comes down. But unfortunately, not a great week to vacation to Florida, especially Central Florida. It's going to be wet. I'm heading to Orlando Tuesday afternoon. I'm packing my rain gear, not just wet, but cold. But you can see here on the NAM model, this snow is going to spread east, but it continues to trend a little bit farther south. So places like Jackson, Meridian, Birmingham, Montgomery, and Atlanta, while you're not out of the complete picture from getting snow, right now the trend is dropping it more to your south, just a little bit too dry for that. When you get closer to the Gulf Coast, that's where amounts could be higher here. We do have a marginal risk for severe weather ongoing, the I-4 corridor primarily into this afternoon. There's a slight chance of some tornadoes and some damaging wind. And you will see that with our front that comes through. But here's a look at the GFS model showing you that the snow will fall all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico late in the day, Tuesday and Tuesday evening. Then we've got a potential issue here with sleet in pink and freezing rain in red. I know it's tough to see the difference over the central and eastern panhandle, snow in southern Georgia, then moving into the Carolinas. But this has shifted. And for those of you basically on the I-85 corridor and maybe even I-95 in North Carolina, what looked like it was going to be maybe a substantial storm is now trending more towards the coast. So places like Raleigh and Charlotte are not looking super good for a chance for some snow at this point. There is a possibility something tries to spin up near the coast. This is not a high confidence forecast, but something to watch later on Thursday into Thursday night. But again, this is only one model showing that. If you look at the Canadian model, it too has backed off on how far north the snow gets. It's got it to the southern suburbs of Birmingham and Atlanta, but no further to the north. So we do have a winter storm watch for Atlanta now, but there is a very possible chance that that ends up getting dropped to your south, even south of Clayton County, maybe towards Butts County in those areas. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But southern Georgia, southern Alabama, northern Florida, all are going to be involved in this storm, and we're all going to have major impacts. But this is the Canadian for Thursday or Tuesday night. If we go back one day, look at how much it's changed. It was showing several inches in the Carolinas and even Virginia. And then this morning, we saw that trend going east towards the other models. And our latest model continues that trend as it looks like the drier air is going to win out. So I'm here in Raleigh and I'm not expecting much. But I am going to say this, if you are watching, and we do get a little bit of snow as temperatures are going to be dropping quickly and it's coming at night Tuesday night, just stay off the roads. Take my advice on this one. As road temperatures drop, it's not going to take much snow to cause things to ice and glaze over very quickly. We don't need 2 inches of snow for that to be a problem. Those of you that remember today back in 2005 in Raleigh will know exactly what we're talking about when less than half an inch fell, but people were trapped on roads for 12 hours. It's crazy that we even have to talk about it, but it does in fact happen. The European model, this is the earlier run. I'll show you the new one, but you can see again, it does have some snow back to Raleigh and Charlotte, but again, most of it's going to be confined to the coastline. And then we're just going to stay wet in Central Florida until about Wednesday night and maybe even Thursday, some more rain coming for Florida. But the Euro's got maybe some mischief here Thursday night as well. So this may not be the only storm this week in the south. We may have something else at the very end of the week. We're going to track that, of course, for you. This is the German icon model. It doesn't show sleet or freezing rain, apparently, but you can see where the blue indicates the snow. And it's just south of Charlotte, just south of Raleigh, and just south of Norfolk and Virginia Beach. So coastal sections primarily here. And this area in green will probably have freezing rain, to be honest with you, even though it's showing it as rain. So winter weather impacts are going to be major from Houston over to Baton Rouge and maybe even towards New Orleans and LaPlace. They'll be significant enough here for this moderate, and I think this comes up over the rest of southeastern Texas, the rest of South Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And taking this to the east here, you will see that impacts also include southern Alabama, much of northern Florida, central and south Georgia, and the coastlines of the Carolinas. Minor impact doesn't mean, oh, just go out and travel. You're not going to have big time problems. Maybe there'll be a few slick spots. Minor means we're probably going to have some cancellations in schools and businesses closing because any kind of wintry weather down here is going to be enough to cause problems. So anywhere you see color, just be prepared for the worst. We hope it's not going to be that way. But you can see the potential for significant snow over 1 inch is very high across the Gulf states. Comes down a little bit as it comes over to the Carolinas, but it's still significant. The possibility of seeing 3 inches or more of snow is greatest in Texas and Louisiana. That's why we're talking about a generational storm. The possibility of 6 inches or more is pretty low, but if it happens, it may happen in the low country of Georgia and South Carolina, possibly North Carolina, and more likely in southeastern Texas and southwestern Louisiana. All right, so here's what the European is showing snow-wise. It's more than the NAM around Houston, especially the south side of town. It's showing up to 8 inches and an inch or so around Austin and San Antonio. Very little, though, around DFW, Upshur County, Longview, anywhere in northeast Texas. Not going to be much. The European, and I'm showing the Euro because it's between everything else. It's a good kind of middle ground model at this point. But you can see here the heaviest snow band is about 10 inches here near Opelousas and DeRidder, Louisiana, maybe Lafayette and Lake Charles, and perhaps Baton Rouge. And this pink area could still shift north or south. This is a model guess. It's very possible it ends up farther south, even closer to New Orleans or Slidell or Hammond. It could shift north towards Natchez and Macomb, could end up in between and hit the Felicianas. We just don't quite know. But just know that there is potentially some very big upside here across this portion. There's less upside, though, across Alabama and Georgia. And you can see Atlanta and Birmingham are going to get very little at this point. Macon may get a couple inches. Columbus, Phoenix City could see a couple of inches. More, though, over southeast Alabama. And we could see 4 or 5 inches in the northwestern corner of Florida here as well. Where we've seen our biggest changes in the European is in the Carolinas. A few days ago, and I can show that to you if you look a day ago, we were showing 6, 7 inches in the eastern part of the state. Today, we are looking at an inch or less in the same location. So this is what happens with the models 3 to 4 days out. They're guessing at the positioning of everything, and this just so happens to have shifted east. But there's higher upside here for the coast, the Outer Banks down to Charleston. It's showing 3 inches, but there's certainly some upside to that where we could see more. Freezing rain, that's going to be a challenge as well. Some sleet as well. We're seeing maybe a tenth or two across the coastal bend of Texas and the south side of San Antonio, and this could still stretch a little bit farther south. We're not going to see it in Louisiana. It's primarily snow there. But in Florida and Georgia and South Carolina, these are some substantial potential amounts of ice. We're talking half an inch of ice over southern Georgia. Valdosta, and Waycross and over to Brunswick, even St. Simon's Island, maybe even Hilton Head, and all the way down to near Jacksonville, Lake City, Perry, Florida, all the way down to Panama City. There is ice potential here. And there's a possibility this could still get a little bit farther south or a little bit farther north. I would give it an air of about 40 miles, but it will be substantial enough to cause problems. Now, temperatures, you can see that it's getting much colder here tonight as much of the country is below freezing except for coastal California and central and south Florida, but everybody else is below freezing. Highs tomorrow will remain at 10 to 20 below zero in the upper Midwest. It'll be cold down south, 30s and low 40s. Florida, 60s and 70s south of I-4, 20s and 30s for the Northeast. Lows tomorrow night, very, very cold. Sub-zero temperatures for about a third of the country. Below freezing for about 80% of the country, and you've got to get all the way down to South Florida to escape that. High temperatures on Tuesday, still very cold. We will fail to make the freezing mark in places like Raleigh and Vicksburg and Alexandria and Houston. This will be one of our coldest days in recent years. Very cold across the upper Midwest. Still warm in central and south Florida, but that will change starting Wednesday night or Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, as it starts to turn colder in Florida. Look at this. Teens in Lake Charles, single digits in the mountains of North Carolina, 10 below zero in Pittsburgh, 0 degrees in Chicago. Again, not we've never heard of this, but it's definitely going to cause a shock to you. Now, we do start to warm up slightly on Wednesday, especially back in the plains here. We're back to the 30s and 40s, but it's very cold in the Carolinas and on northward, and it's chilly in Florida as well. Wednesday night, because of clear skies in the Northeast, many of you are going to be below zero. Single digits and teens in Virginia, North Carolina, teens again in Louisiana, maybe even colder if there's more snow than predicted. High temperatures for Thursday start to come up. Still chilly, though, for many of us, basically north of Interstate 4. As we look at low temperatures Thursday night, these are a little bit closer to average, but they are still below the average. And then high temperatures to end the week Friday are going to be a little bit better here as we start to get back to what we're used to this time of the year. So we need to be preparing. This is what the Weather Prediction Center shows us as far as the worst wind chill over the next few days. 40 to 50 degrees below zero, maybe even 55 below zero, causing life-threatening risks of hypothermia. Even single digits and teens in the deep south. Very significant cold coming. So be sure that you are preparing for it. If you're in Southern California, unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about fires again. We've got very dry air and winds cranking up quite a bit, especially tomorrow and really tomorrow night into Tuesday morning. We need to be most concerned. And I'll come back to this here, but you can see winds are going to start to pick up a little bit in the higher elevations tonight, but tomorrow is when they really ramp up. Take a look at this. Gusts that may exceed 65 to 75 miles per hour late tomorrow and even more tomorrow night north of LA. They come down a little bit, but they're at the coast here for Tuesday morning. Places like Malibu and Oxnard could see gusts to 60 miles per hour. We have to watch the mountains east of San Diego and east of Orange County as well here. They'll come down slowly on Tuesday, but the other problem is not just the wind, but as you can imagine, the dry air. It's not a bad day in LA today, but we are going to dry out significantly as that flow goes back offshore on Monday afternoon and Monday night. And take a look at how the dew points are crashing downhill here into the single digits and teens tomorrow night. And the higher elevations will be extremely dry with dew points as low as 10 to 15 degrees below. Look at that. Oceanside, 27 below in Orange County. That is the dew point. That is Arctic air making its way to the California beaches, unfortunately. So we need to be alert for that. After this stretch of cold comes, we will still be chilly for most of the country. It will start to warm back up in Florida at the end of the month. We do expect to see active weather continuing. We're probably talking rain and storms returning to the southeast and maybe more wintry weather sneaking up to the Ohio Valley and maybe into parts of the Northeast and certainly the Rockies as well. So that's really all that I have for you all today, but I hope everybody is having a great weekend. And again, I apologize for yesterday. It's frustrating, but here we go. We're moving on. We got new recording software, new gear here. We're going to make this channel grow. And I appreciate it if you all can share this video with your friends, subscribe and like as well. And if you have any forecast questions, I'm happy to answer those. I thank you for your time. I give God all the honor and glory. Yahweh has been so good to me. Despite the frustrations that we run into every day, we know that God is good. And that's what keeps me rolling here. And the first letter that Paul wrote to Timothy, 1 Timothy 2 says, "For this is good and acceptable in the sight of God our Savior, who desires all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth." For there is one God and one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus, who gave himself a ransom for all to be testified in due time. And we are about to see some major change coming from above in the government. But as long as we understand who is in control, that is our Lord, and the sacrifices made with our Savior Jesus Christ, then all men will be blessed, not just men, of course, women and children as well. But that is the good news I wanted to share with you today. I hope that I can encourage you in some way today. And if you have any prayer requests, I am happy to spend time in prayer for you. Hope you all have a great weekend. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless.